Hello, my friends, and welcome back to the She Thinks Big podcast. How are you? What's happening? How are you feeling about fall? Do you feel like fall is falling? Is fall slipping away? Because we are literally in the exact middle of the fourth quarter, and I think it sort of starts to turn to winter at this point. Well, here's the thing. I'm guessing at this moment in time, you feel like you have 50 gazillion things on your plate. Is that you? I'm guessing it's you that you feel like you have 50 gazillion things on your plate. I'm also guessing that you're starting to think about how you're going to end this year and begin the new year. Normal, very normal. So that's good news. And I think you're probably realizing maybe that even though this year you said you were going to be better about delegating, you are resisting delegating. All right. So today's episode is about why you're resisting and what you can do about it. And it was inspired by a recent Vision into Action intensive I did with someone who really wants to delegate more and isn't. And we've gone back and forth now a couple times, even after her Vision to Action intensive. She stayed on for some ongoing coaching, so good move on her part. But I've gone back and forth on even if she were to delegate, this is scaring her because she's thinking, what would I do? What would happen to me? What would I be doing? Which is so interesting that her brain has gone there. There'd be so many things that she could be doing that she's not doing now that she wants to do, which I had to remind her. But back to today's topic. Today's topic is really about why you are struggling with delegation. I get it. I totally get it. You've built this business from the ground up, and now you're handing over tasks to someone else. And that really can be a huge leap, the handing over. But here's the thing. Not delegating is really often what holds us back from scaling. Okay, so if you haven't taken my new quiz, Are You Ready to Scale Big? Little plug for that. Go to AndreaLiebross.com/quiz, and you're going to find out if you're ready to scale. But not delegating is what holds us back from scaling. And it holds us back from enjoying really the freedom that we started our businesses to achieve in the first place. Like, I don't know a person that didn't start their own business who thought eventually, they're probably pretty realistic and realized it wouldn't be on day one, but eventually they might have more freedom than they did working for someone else. And thus, that freedom word is why I call the mastermind Runway to Freedom. And if you didn't listen to last week's episode, which was about my Runway to Freedom group, you really should go listen because I think people are creating the freedom that they want to in there. All right. But nonetheless, let's talk about 3 reasons why we resist delegating and how these play out specifically for women entrepreneurs. I've done some other episodes on delegating, which I will link in the show notes. If you're not familiar with the 5 levels of delegation, I will also link that download in there. Okay. But the 3 reasons that I kind of wrapped my head around why we resist delegating, here's what they come down to. Okay. So here's reason number 1. Fear of losing control. Okay. What do I mean by that? You've likely had the thought, if I don't do this myself, it won't get done right. It won't be done the right way. Does this sound familiar? I bet it does, because I see this a lot, especially in clients who are perfectionists. And it's that fear that if we pass something off, we're going to lose control over the outcome, or I might say what goes in the result line. Okay. And maybe you own a business and you've been doing, let's say you have actually an inventory, right? So you've been doing all the buying, you've been doing all the marketing, you've been doing all the customer service yourself, and you're afraid to hand over even a little bit of any of that, because what if someone messes up? Those client relationships are the most important thing to you, is what you will tell me. If someone messes up, you're putting the client relationship in jeopardy. You're going to feel horrible. yada, yada. Okay, but here's the thing. Holding on to everything keeps you in the weeds. Keeps you in the weeds. And staying there really means that you never, ever are going to step into that CEO role. You are the CEO, but you're not stepping into that role. And because you can't step into that role, you can't focus on strategy and growth. You can't even think about scaling or growing for that matter. Okay. So if you're not going to delegate, then you're not going to be able to step into that role, CEO role, in its fullest form. And you're not going to be able to think strategically and focus on growth or scale. Okay. And this fear of losing control is really just a story that you're telling yourself. It's just a story, right? I won't have as much control. And what if? Okay. So this then puts you into stuck stress. This is a great example of stuck stress. All right. So that's one reason that you probably are struggling with delegating. Okay. Here's reason number 2. Perfectionism. And I hinted on this a little bit before, but now perfectionism is a sneaky one. It is different than losing control. Okay. Because we convince ourselves that nobody can do the task as well as we can. So there's a difference between it's not going to be done right. That's fear. Okay. Or what if something goes wrong? That's fear. It's not going to be done as well as I could do it. Okay. Is different. This is perfectionism. Okay. And I once worked with a woman who ran a design firm. Okay. And she was stuck doing everything from creating the concepts, the design board, to managing the invoices, to posting on social media, because she believed that no one could match her standard and that no one would be able to communicate the brand as well as she would, and that no one would catch all the invoice errors like she would. Okay. And this perfectionism was a trap. It's really what kept her locked in that day-to-day and prevented her from leveling up. So the reality is, good enough is often good enough. Okay. This is where like B- work turned in is better than A+ work that never gets turned in. Okay. And hiring someone to handle the admin or to handle some of these tasks, even if they don't do it exactly how you would, really frees you up to focus on your genius zone. Okay. So in my free download called The Zone of Extraordinary Achievement, it's part of the toolkit for the book. So you could go to andrealiebross.com/toolkit, look for Zone of Extraordinary Achievement. I ask some questions about when you're ready to delegate or how do you know if you should delegate. And this perfectionism comes up in that series of questions. In fact, that handout, Zone of Extraordinary Achievement, is a perfect thing to accompany this episode. So I really do encourage you to go download that. It's like a rubric that's going to help you figure out why you're resisting delegating and what to delegate. Okay, but this brings us to our third reason why you might be struggling. Okay, the third reason is the time investment. So a lot of business owners say, I'd rather just do it myself than spend time teaching someone else how to do it. Yeah, have you ever thought about this? I'd rather just do it myself than teach someone else how to do it. I can fall guilty of this one. The perfectionism isn't necessarily me. The losing control, definitely not me, but this time thing could be me. Okay, where I'd rather just do it myself than teach someone how to do it. But I see this is a big one for women balancing multiple responsibilities. So you've got a family, you've got business, you've got personal commitments. We feel like training someone will take too much time and we're already stretched too thin. You can't add another thing to your plate. But here's the truth. Yes, training does take time up front, but once you've done it, the time you get back is invaluable. Okay, so I want you to imagine that you are a business owner who spends hours each week on client scheduling and invoicing. training an assistant to handle those tasks might take a couple weeks, but the hours you will save every month are huge. They're huge. Okay. So, listeners, it's time to rethink delegation. If you want to grow, if you want to scale, it's non-negotiable. The question isn't if you should delegate, it's what you should delegate first. Okay. And that's where that rubric, that zone of extraordinary achievement rubric that you can access through the toolkit is powerful in helping you figure out what to delegate first. It actually even like gives you little like green light, red light kind of things after you answer a couple questions. Okay. And then remember, when you are delegating, done is way better than perfect. Okay. And control can actually really come from building a solid team, not from doing everything yourself. So I do see that this perfect thing gets totally in the way. Like someone says, I'm going to have to take the next 3 weeks to write these 3 emails. What? No, you're not. Okay. That's perfect getting in your way. Or I'm just not going to have time on my schedule to do it until next month. What? If it's something important, it needs to get done now. Could you delegate it? Okay. So the 3 reasons why you're resisting. Number 1, fear of losing control. Number 2, perfectionism. And number 3, time investment. Okay. So I want you to access in the show notes the 5 levels of delegation, because not all delegating is created equal, my friends. I want you to go back and listen to that episode about how to delegate using those 5 levels of delegation. I also want you to look at the zone of extraordinary achievement. What should you be delegating? Okay. That's going to help you. All right. That's it for today's episode. This is something that I really want you to consider getting good at as we go into 2025. And as you start to create your goals, you don't have to be the only one executing on those goals. So this is another thing I see in these vision to action intensives. Like people limit themselves because they only think about what they have the capacity for and what they can do, which is a good thing to be thinking about. But are you considering the people on your team? What does the whole organization as a whole have the capacity to do? Or do we need to even expand on the team? That's another thing. Okay. So if you're struggling with delegation or feeling stuck in that daily grind, I want you to get help on this. And the best way, I've mentioned a lot of what I'll call sort of passive action ways, but the best way is to talk about getting support in the form of coaching. Okay. So you can head to my website, you can book a call, and we can talk about how we can shift your mindset and free up your time for bigger things. And actually, by the time this episode airs, I believe there's even a couple options on the website where we don't even have to book a call. You can click and invest in some coaching immediately. Because after all, if you've listened to all these podcast episodes, you probably know enough that it might be helpful. Okay. Until next time, my friends, keep thinking big. I'll be back here next week with another episode. But in the meantime, I want to know, what are you thinking big about? Let me know. Message me. See you soon.